Hi everyone. Just going to share some thoughts about the upcoming full moon in Capricorn. I am going to try to keep this a little bit shorter than my normal transmissions, as I have been unwell the past week again. Sinus infection I had has returned. So that being said, here is the full moon chart. 21st of July in the Southern Hemisphere. So the day before for the rest of you in the Northern Hemisphere. It's quite an intense Capricorn full moon. Now, this is the second Capricorn full moon in a month. We had the first one at the beginning of Cancer and Capricorn. And then halfway through that, we had the new moon in Cancer. And now we've come to the second Capricorn full moon. Now, in the first Capricorn full moon a month ago, Venus was quite close to the sun at that point, and she was invisible. Venus is now visible as an evening star, as is Mercury. The main feature really with this full moon is I think the most obvious energies being amplified really is the Cancer-Capricorn polarity, because of the having two full moons in Capricorn and then in between one in Cancer, new moon in Cancer. So that axis has been, quite prominent on the collective field. Excuse me if I'm going to be coughing through this. It's just unavoidable. As I was saying, this is the second full moon in Capricorn, and then in between we had the new moon in Cancer. So that polarity is highly emphasized collectively and for us personally. Now, it's going to mean different things, obviously, for each of us individually. For myself, the Cancer-Capricorn energy lies in the axis of my 12th and 6th house. And it's so the last couple of months I've been sick, and so that's pretty interesting, because the 6th house and 12th house are the zones that can take you into being unwell, which is what's happened to me. Anyway, the full moon is actually conjunct Pluto, and the moon in Capricorn itself, is not one of the happiest places for the moon. So that within itself is already quite challenging. The moon is in its fall in Capricorn because it's exalted in Cancer. So whilst the moon in Capricorn, yes, it can have some helpful things about it, it is also emotionally quite challenging. Simply because Capricorn is an archetype that's ruled by Saturn, which again is the opposite energy to the moon. So there's a very perhaps sense of feeling unsupported. Now, whether that's through people around you, supports around you, structures around you, whatever it may be. So it kind of forces us back onto ourselves, to rely on our own resilience and strength. And Pluto, of course, being right there with the moon, adds quite an intense energy to what the moon is already feeling, which is a lack of perhaps emotional support, Cancer. And Pluto certainly amplifies in a very intense way whatever it touches. So it is showing us something about tapping into our own inner power and understanding that we must ultimately be our own support. And because it's also at the 29th degree, both the sun and the moon, there's something quite significant ending here as well. You know, it's an anaretic degree. The other feature, of course, to this is that Chiron is wedged in between the sun and moon. So it's squaring both sun and moon. It's called a T-square. And once again, you know, that's not a particularly easy energy. So if we've been dealing with some challenging matters that have to do with our own sense of feeling supported, or family issues, cancer, or just our own emotional inner security and also our external security, if we've had some challenges around those themes, you know, the last month or so, which wouldn't be surprising if we have. I'm speaking generally, of course, because it's it can manifest in so many different ways. That the primary key, of course, is to look at where these full moons and new moons have been occurring in relative to your chart. That is where it's Cancer and Capricorn. Those areas will be highlighted. So simple example, whilst I've been sick, it's been a difficult time, you know. My mother lives in Greece, my father is on the other side. You know, I've had to just kind of deal with it on my own. It's not like I've had tremendous support around me. So I think when we're unwell and, you know, we don't have the luxury of having, you know, family around us, people around us kind of reaching out or, you know, offering that support, it can be a really tough time. But it also tests your resilience and shows you just how capable you are as well. But it's just not a pleasant experience. And I think the moon in Capricorn always highlights that. It highlights that we have to really just be emotionally dependent on ourselves, you know. It's a cold energy, the moon in Capricorn. You don't feel that that sense of you know, people sort of coming to you and saying, oh, would you like me to do this for you or make this for you or go to the shops for you or whatever it is, you know, it's just, yeah, it's just not an easy energy. And then throw in Chiron. Chiron, of course, is always the archetype that corresponds to what we may deeply fear around being not seen, not accepted, not understood, and or rejected as well, you know. So once again, it throws us back into our own wounds, you could say. So Chiron squaring this full moon, you know, at best will be a passage where we can heal some things that maybe we've been dealing with, you know, the last month or so. But it will also show where we feel, again, perhaps having to have to do it on our own, you know, whatever it is we are doing, whatever it is we are working on and trying to heal or trying to make better or trying to integrate or trying to clear and so forth. You know, it's a sore spot. Chiron is always a sore spot. And I can certainly feel this energy very strongly. You know, don't really like talking about myself, but sometimes it's just useful for astrological examples, you know, feeling really unwell and having to move. I still haven't found a home, which is, you know, all the Cancer energy. So yeah, it's a pretty challenging time. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm sure there's many people out there that relate to this in their own way. But you know, it's just the cycle of the sun and the moon, not to make that sound not important. Of course, it's important, but it's more of a timer, of things that can either clear up or move on or disperse or just be illuminated so that you can see what you're dealing with, especially with the full moon. It always just brings things to light, for better or for worse. But even if it's for worse, at least you can see what you're dealing with, right? And that's the beauty of an opposition. It just brings things to light. I think the most important thing in the backdrop of this that would be adding quite a bit of confusion, I would say, quite a bit of frustration as well, is we have this Neptune, the last degree of Pisces, really just dissolving what we thought life was, and this has been going on for some time, and it's still going on right now as we speak. So we can have these experiences where we flow in and out of stories or memories or people or situations or things that we used to do, whatever it is, we flow in and out of this sense of wanting to hold on to what we used to do or the way we used to do it or the connection we used to have to this particular thing or that particular person. And it's difficult to hold on to it because it's dissolving, and Saturn in Pisces is only amplifying that whole story. And as Saturn and Neptune have been, sort of dancing around together at this last degree, or Neptune at the last degree, but Saturn in Pisces as well, is that dismantling, of previous structures and all the illusions, that we had around what we thought this reality has been. So it can be an experience of sometimes feeling like, what reality am I living in? What is going on with this reality? It's so chaotic, which it is. And what's happening now is that Jupiter, as it moves forward in Gemini, and I think I'll come back and speak to this in greater depth a little bit down the track, because this aspect, Jupiter squaring Saturn, is already active from now, and it's going to be active until February, March next year. Because Jupiter is going to go retrograde in October at 21 degrees of Gemini. And because of that retrograde motion, it's going to do like a triple bypass, with its square to Saturn. So that's a really important aspect between two really important planets that have so much to do with our desire to grow and expand. Jupiter and Saturn bringing home the reality and the truth of what we must let go of, Pisces, what we must finish, and also the awareness of, or perhaps not even the awareness, but perhaps more the frustration, because it's a square aspect of a sense of wanting to move forward. And then at the same time, this feeling of things holding you back. And so there's this dynamic tension between the desire to expand on your current life journey and the personal limitations that are in the way, so to speak. And so this is a It's not even a background energy, it's in the forefront, really. But this is there during this full moon, as is the energy of, Neptune at the last degree of Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces, which, Saturn and Neptune are slowly preparing to finish their cycle in Pisces, and by 2026, they'll be conjunct in Aries, which is going to be a very bizarre, extremely bizarre new paradigm, a new beginning that will be filled with tremendous anxiety, actually. But that's another subject. But I think it's just worth considering the square between Jupiter and Saturn, which is coming up now. And it really, I mean, the best way to work with this energy is to realize what needs to, where your personal limitations may be, what you may need to just, completely just resign to say, okay, well, I'm finished with that. I'm done with that. There's no going back to that anymore. It's futile. And with the desire to want to expand and develop and grow in your personal direction, now that could be in business matters as well, because these two planets, they are the social planets. They are the planets that speak to the social construct of our reality, and also our, philosophical orientation and belief systems as well, Jupiter, Of course, there is reception here because Saturn is in Jupiter's sign. So I think that reception helps the tension between the two, because these two energies, these two archetypes, Jupiter and Saturn, are the complete antithesis. One, Jupiter, is all about expanding and wanting to explore our horizons and take risks and, push beyond the boundaries, Saturn, and feel ourselves grow in the direction that we are going in. And Saturn is the one that brings in fear or control or caution, precautions. So we're going to have to really be smart with how we juggle this energy, because a square aspect is extremely potent. We can't ignore it. And we can't just pick one and ignore the other, in terms of, we can't just go to Jupiter and ignore Saturn, or go to Saturn and ignore Jupiter. But it's a really tricky energy that needs to be worked in together. So in some cases, we might have to apply more caution. We may have to just be more patient with what we are trying to accomplish or what we are trying to create, and understand that there is a timing with everything that unfolds. That's Saturn constantly reminding us of time, being the Lord of time. And sometimes there might be matters that come through Jupiter that are opportunities that enable us to grow, and we can act on those as well, but we must do it with the respect to Saturn as well. So it's like being cautiously optimistic. That's a really good phrase for a Jupiter-Saturn energy. So a lot of us will start feeling, this energy building from now, really, but it's going to be in play, as I said, until early next year. So relative to this full moon, the matters of our own sense of inner security and external security are greatly highlighted during this full moon, particularly with Pluto. right there with the moon, and of course opposite the sun as well, out of sign, but extremely close, as you can see. So there is something that's challenging us to say goodbye, to end. You know, Pluto is always about endings. But the intense emotion that can rise out of this, because it is a full moon, and full moons, as I said, you know, the greatest thing is that they illuminate and they bring awareness to things, but they do also expand the or shake up the deep emotions that are sitting, you know, behind what's going on, so to speak, right? And with Pluto there, it just amplifies the emotional experience. But just remember that it is a full moon that, you know, will pass in a couple of days' time after this. So there'll be an intensity there for a couple of days, and the intensity might be around, you know, some difficult situations that have to do with needing to be emotionally reliant on yourself, and just dealing with whatever circumstances you are in. And just know that Pluto, whilst it can be incredibly emotionally intense and difficult, it can also help us remove, you know, and clear out what we have been processing, and what we know we need to release. But again, like I said, you know, this is all happening in the backdrop of these extremely bizarre, difficult energies in the background, with Neptune at the end of Pisces and Jupiter and Saturn coming into squaring each other, which will, it's a little bit like push-pull. You know, do I expand or do I contract? And it will be both. In some areas of life, we will be able to expand a little bit further, and in some areas we may have to pull back. We may have to cut our losses. We may have to separate from something. We may have to, you know, restructure and reorganize and make something a little bit smaller, which is Saturn. Saturn shrinks and reduces things, you know. And Jupiter, of course, does the opposite. So we're going to be working with both those dynamics in a way where they are squaring each other, meaning they're both trying to occupy the same space. So they both want to do what they want to do, and they can't because they're squaring each other. And as I said before, that the best way to deal with this is to understand that in some cases you may need to limit some things that you are doing, and in some cases you may be able to continue to expand. And that will come down to you and your life story and where these planets are transiting in your birth chart as well. Just one final thing before I go, because I really feel like my voice needs a rest again. The asteroid Cassandra, who is the goddess of prophecy, is exactly 29 degrees on this day. So she's conjunct the full moon. Now, collectively, that's going to point to a few different things. And politically, I think, you know, especially with the recent unfoldments in USA, with the absolute chaos and mayhem that's going on there, I think that's going to be quite an interesting full moon for USA with Cassandra there. Cassandra is the goddess of prophecy, but the story is really interesting because she had a relationship with the sun god Apollo, who is also a god of prophecy. And she kind of changed her mind about wanting to be with him in an intimate way. There's a couple of versions, like there is with every single myth. There's often 2 or even 3 different versions. So in one version, it is said that she was a goddess of prophecy unto herself. In another version, it is said that Apollo gifted her that gift of prophecy, and he gifted it to her in the motivation was that he thought he was going to have a romantic, a romantic relationship with her. And when she didn't want to have that kind of relationship with him, it is said that he leaned in to kiss her, and he spat in her mouth and cursed her. And the curse was that when she spoke her prophecies, nobody would believe her. So she's an interesting goddess from that perspective, because when she shows up, it can be, on the collective or on the personal level. It can be, well, somebody is trying to communicate a truth, pardon me, not only a truth, but perhaps a profound prophecy, and it's not being heard or it's not being believed. And of course, if that is reduced down to our own personal circumstances, we may find ourselves in that situation. So think about that, in your own circumstances, because you may be in a situation where that happens. And if it does, you'll know why. It's because Cassandra is right there on that full moon. And if it goes on collectively, which I have no doubt it will in some way, shape, or form, well, then, that's that. But I just thought I'd mention it because she literally is on the 29th degree, and that's got to be meaningful because it's a female divinity trying to give prophecy, conjunct the full moon. Full moon is also a feminine body, Full moon is a feminine body of light trying to illuminate us, right? That's what the full moon does. So there might be some, some prophecy trying to be illuminated, and because of the curse that was put upon Cassandra, it might not be heard or seen. So it's up to us to really be receptive and perceptive enough to discern if something is trying to be revealed to us, which it is, because Pluto is there as well. And Pluto brings up a lot of things. It can bring up energies from the past, things reappearing again, for instance. It can bring in the scope of X-ray vision, meaning it's trying to expose something that is hidden. So there's some real hidden kind of prophecy that's trying to be illuminated through this full moon. That's my feeling and perspective on it. I'll leave that with you to consider for yourself. I will sign off because I need to. So wishing you a illuminated full moon, even though the energies are really quite challenging. Capricorn at its best is also the archetype that can show us just how much we've grown and how much we can deal with our own life story, you know, our own structures, what we've created, what we may need to deconstruct. Pluto conjunct the full moon in Capricorn. So a lot, let me just go back to, pardon me. Oh, I forgot to mention, and this is actually more in play today, which is, what day is it today? It's Friday. Venus is trine the North Node and sextile the South Node. And that's a very beneficial little window of opportunity. And even though on the day of the full moon, she's gone past being exact, it's still there. So, you know, for the next couple of days, Venus is in her visible form. Pardon me for my coughing, guys. I know some of you get annoyed about it, but I am trying to cover my mouth, but I am a human. I'm not a robot. Venus's beneficial aspects to the nodes can add a really a little bump up, you know, a little supportive window relative to the connections that we are making at this time in our life. The North Node is a lot of things, you know. It's certainly our destiny because it's our destination, right? And we are always heading towards the North Node, which is a destination. That's where the word destiny comes from, actually. And the North Node also speaks to alliances, you know, positive, beneficial alliances that we meet on our pathway that support our growth towards the North Node. So it's considered a benefic point as well, in other words. And Venus, of course, is a benefic planet. And she is extremely powerful at the moment because she's in Leo, which is a secondary exaltation in Babylonian astrology. And Venus is visible in the sky. So she's very, very powerful at the moment. So even though we've got these, you know, we've got this, I'm not excited about this full moon. I've got to admit, I might just lay low during those days and just process internally what it brings up. You know, I think we all can do well by doing that. But don't underestimate the power of Venus being visible in Leo, conjunct the beautiful goddess Vesta, approaching a conjunction, trining the North Node, sextile South Node. Mercury at the moment is also trining Chiron, which is a really lovely aspect as well. So there are some nice things going on. And also, you know, look, the moon is it's sextile Neptune, you know. How much is that going to help? You know, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it is there. It is picking up that aspect as well. But I think, you know, the primary feeling of this full moon will be the fact that it's very close to Pluto, which is also retrograde. Yeah, but in any case, don't underestimate the power of Venus forming these really lovely aspects to the nodes. It's beneficial, even if it just connects you, you know, to one person or something that you're trying to integrate in your life in a Venusian way. That could be creatively, could be in relationships, any relationship. Venus is not just romantic relationships. It's any relationship, or as well, it's anything that we love and we enjoy to do. So there is something showing up here that could be very, very helpful and very beneficial from a Venusian level that must not be underestimated. So be receptive to that energy too, because it's really important. Okay, I really have to go. See you guys soon. Sending you so much love and beautiful Venus visible blessings. Bye for now.